Well, in the end, customs checks doesn't mean that you change the constitutional status of a part of the United Kingdom. That's not going to happen. Already we're seeing the political parties and business leaders coming together to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation, not only to ensure we have full access to the UK market, but we've also got access to the EU market.
I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. His little head. The moral of the story is. You want some head. You need some bread. Right turn. Huh! What did I see?
What did I see?
A little bird.
A little bird.
He looked at me.
He looked at me.
I lured him close.
I lured him close.
With a piece of bread.
With a piece of bread.
And then I smashed.
And then I smashed
his little head.
his little head.
Well, hello and welcome yet again to another Wednesday evening at Restore UK Live. Restore UK going out to the Restore channel on Facebook, also to the British Unionist People's Voice on Facebook, and also to our YouTube channel. Now, what I would like to ask people to do is that we're again conscious this evening, as far as I know, there's a Rangers match on, which would take away a lot of people from this stream. However, what we want to do is that we want to encourage you, the people that are here, and the numbers are high enough. I would like to encourage you to share this platform, share it via the Facebook channel, share it into your own pages, your own groups, groups that you belong to, open pages, closed pages, wherever. If you could just share this out, what it will do is that it will permit us to reach as many people as humanly possible. Well, as you know already, that the social media giants, whenever, as Orwell would have said, in times of universal deceit, telling the truth will be a revolutionary act. Well, we must be revolutionaries, because social media giants, well, what they do is they do not let our what it is that we're showing in terms of our platform, in terms of our broadcast. They do not let what it is that we do, they don't let it spread in the way that other things do. So we rely on the people that actually come here to share it out as far and as wide as humanly possible. Now, this evening, we're here to do something that we've been meaning to do for the past few weeks now. Now, for one reason or another, I mean, the first we did the first expose on the CIA interference in Northern Ireland, and how that it was that a man called Chuck Feeney, with Chuck's Big Bucks, well, he came here, and we can see that Chuck actually started his exploits in 1984, according to how that it goes. And Chuck Feeney was involved in sending some operatives here, and himself also here to Northern Ireland, in where that what they were doing is that they were assessing who that it is that they could identify, who that it is were potential leaders, who that it is that these people could fund, and could fund in order to drive American foreign policy here in Northern Ireland. Well, not just Northern Ireland, but they've done this right across the world. And we showed you in the first series of what it is that we're here to do, is that how that the influential bucks, the influential money from Chuck Feeney, well, what it did was it manipulated, it purchased into place many things here in Northern Ireland. But people, I'm going to say one thing, and there's one thing to absolutely remember whenever that I'm speaking, is that Chuck's bucks, Chuck's money, well, you see, Chuck was an Irish American at heart. He, according to his nephew, Tommy, well, Tommy would have said that Chuck began to focus on all things Irish, all things to do with his roots. Chuck came here after a visit and a chat and a talk with one Bill Clinton. And what he did was that he came here in order to try to, well, he said, in order to try to create a better society here in Northern Ireland. But if we look at the American influences, ever since the peace process began, and let me just take you right back here in Northern Ireland and leave a bit of history with you. I mean, in 1985, it was said that Reagan actually encouraged Margaret Thatcher to sign the Anglo-Irish Agreement. Now, Margaret Thatcher, she signed that agreement, and she signed that in her words, for better cooperation, for cooperation in where that the extradition processes, well, they weren't working actually too well. And Margaret Thatcher would have signed up to the Anglo-Irish Agreement in order that there would have been better cooperation between the British government, the Irish government, in order to, in order to stop the terrorists from murdering people. All because that people were British in their own land. And they didn't stop at murdering British people. Oh no, not the IRA, because they murdered more of their own people than anyone else in this dirty, seedy little war that we're beginning now to understand in a way that we've never actually understood before. So the history is that Chuck's bucks influenced a lot of people from around the 1984 period. We can actually trace it back to, in where that they were searching Northern Ireland for potential leaders. Now, some would say, and we've talked to a lot of people with reference what it is that happened here in Northern Ireland. People that were in the security services, people that were in an authority, people that would have worked for the government. And we've talked to a lot of people, people in the military of a high stature. And what they are telling us is that, yeah, the so-called, quote unquote, the Barbies, they were in Northern Ireland, and it didn't stop there. I mean, I'm going to talk about, and this is something that we'll come to talk about in the very, very near future. I'm going to talk about a trinity. And, you know, there was a trinity of, I'm going to say, people who were the puppet masters, who were manipulating into place the things that happened here in Northern Ireland. And that triangle, it extended from Whitehall to Washington. And it came back here to Northern Ireland, and those were the people in Northern Ireland that would have run agents and so on. So we're going to call this, for the purpose of understanding, a trinity, in where the actual FBI were actually involved in running agents here in Northern Ireland. We're going to talk about that more in the future as we go. So we're here this evening to talk about how that it is that we believe, how that it is that we actually see that our own politicians, that they were manipulated, that they were identified back in the early 80s going forward, that they were identified as potential, and here's another quote unquote, potential agents of influence, in where that American foreign policy could actually be pushed into place here in Northern Ireland. And as time has went on, what we can clearly see is that although that some people back in the day, that they would have been skeptical, somewhat. Well, as time went on, as you would have heard if you watched our first stream, well, a man that approached the MI5 people, whenever he approached them, and he said that, you know, what are the Barbies doing here in Northern Ireland? Why are you permitting the Barbies to manipulate political life, to manipulate social life here in Northern Ireland? Why are you permitting this to happen? Well, you see, that was an argument which ensued, which, if you go back and you listen to your first stream, well, it was actually suggested that their drive to recruit agents of influence, well, that drive was so successful after a short period of time, that they actually had to suspend the recruitment drive that they were actually involved in. Now, those are the things that we've learned as we have embarked upon digging up and uncovering and searching far and wide and looking under many, many stones in order to be able to bring you these stones. So tonight, what we're here to focus on is that we're here to focus on, just to recap, what it is that the Barbies, the CIA, was capable of, what it is that the CIA were involved in here in Northern Ireland since as far as we can see, 1984. Now, that was with Chuck Feeney and his crew. But prior to that, well, there was other people that was actually involved. And again, in another stream, we can talk about that in great depth. So again, we're here to talk about how the CIA manipulated into place Irish-American influences, and how that it was that they potentially recruited many people, many people from within the Republican community, from within the nationalist community, from within the church community, from within the political community, from within everyday life here in Northern Ireland, and most importantly, and this maybe explains more than anything else, from within the political community, from within the British Unionist mainstream political parties here in Northern Ireland. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about this evening. So what I would like you to do again, and we're going to play some videos as we go. We have a lot of things organized here. Now, I'm going to say that a lot of the stuff that we had actually prepared to do, and I'm just looking to see if it has dropped through or whatever, and I'm just going to say to Jim here But Jim, those videos, they actually haven't came, but don't worry, Jim, if they haven't came, maybe you could give it a go again. We can go in another way to be able to show what it is that we actually want to do. And we believe that social media has been playing up. We believe that the digital communications that we have been playing up. And then you ask yourself the question, well, are they being manipulated? Are they being manipulated in order that we can't expose everything that we're here to expose this evening? But anyway, we will be pressing on regardless, and we'll get there no matter what, because what we have done is that we've taken things from another source because the digital communications weren't actually working in the way that we're working. So I'm going to ask people once again to if you tag people into the live chat, if you share this platform far and wide, and if you just encourage people to come to listen to what it is that we're here to talk about. And people, I believe if you listen very carefully to the words of the people from within these videos, and also to what it is that we have to say in between, well, I believe just like us, as we have been researching this entire history of what has happened here in Northern Ireland, well, I believe just like us, you people will get to learn an awful lot as to the reasons why we as British Unionists find ourselves in the position that we are in today, in where that every single time that there's an uttering from Westminster, or every single time that there is a stand-up, when people stand up on the British Unionist side of the equation here in Northern Ireland, and stand up for what? They're standing up for their rights. They're standing up for their democracy. They're standing up for their freedom of speech, their freedom of expression. They are carrying out their absolute right to point out corruption as and where that they see it. But every time this happens, you might note, like we have noted, that what happens is that you get some, some uttering from Washington, basically suggesting that, that the Belfast Agreement, it has to be protected, that the Good Friday Agreement, as they call it, it has to be protected. But as we have learned, it is only protected if it serves the interest of an Irish-American policy and American foreign policy in Northern Ireland. In other words, those that have attached themselves and hitched themselves to globalization in all its forms, well, they are the people, seemingly, that must be facilitated, that must be placated, as we have learned, that must be appeased at all costs. And would you believe, those are the people who are the most extreme of the extremes. So people, what I'm going to do here is that I have a lot of videos to play. There's some videos that actually didn't come down, but we're going to start off by reminding people. Now, we're going to remind people about Jeffrey Donaldson's stance on the protocol prior to the lodge in Market Hill, standing up and making a statement, which created a domino effect right around this country, which had other Orange lodges getting in behind Market Hill. And what actually happened was that this domino effect actually forced the Orange Order, per se, into the position whereby that they had no other option other than to make a statement that the protocol, it wasn't acceptable to the Orange Order. Now, this is me paraphrasing, but remember where this started. That ordinary citizens, just like ourselves here in Restore, just like yourselves that come here to visit Restore, well, we had been complaining about the protocol ever since that we knew that it was getting into place, and ever since its inception on the 30th or the 31st of December in 2020, ever since the protocol came into being, well, we had been complaining about it, and we had said that the only party, the only British Unionist party that were capable of destroying that protocol were the DUP, because the DUP were the main Unionist party that we put into power to serve and protect us. And the only way that they could have done anything in a meaningful, proactive way against that protocol was to walk away from everything that flowed from that precious Belfast Agreement, from that precious Good Friday Agreement, which the Americans keep banging on about. Well, the only thing which would have focused minds was if the DUP had walked away and says that we won't be back until our electorate, until British Unionists here in Northern Ireland are treated as first-class citizens, until that border is out of the North Channel, until that we are not linked to the EU in a way that others in England, Scotland and Wales are not. Well, people, until democracy has been reinstated to the people of Northern Ireland who voted in that Brexit referendum, the DUP should have walked away and said that we can't be part of anything which makes our electorate second-class citizens. But did they? Well, no, they didn't. And here, people, are the exact reasons why. Now, we all remember that Arlene Foster, well, before that, in 2019, December of 2019, well, Arlene Foster would have been sitting in Armagh along with Simon Coveney and Michelle O'Neill, putting together the mechanisms in where that the protocol could come into being, in where that the protocol could actually function. So there's number one, DUP leader who was working with those that wanted constitutional change here in Northern Ireland, and Arlene Foster was working to provide that constitutional change. Now, it doesn't stop there, because we're looking at the hierarchy of the DUP specifically this evening. And I'm going to remind you of the words of Jeffrey Donaldson. Well, it was in the early part of 2020. And listen very carefully to Jeffrey's words as, well, he appears to be supporting the constitutional changing EU protocol, which, people, if we do not defeat this protocol will defeat Northern Ireland and its place in the United Kingdom. Not only that, this protocol will deliver you, I, and everyone else into the so-called New Ireland. This protocol has the potential to not only take away Northern Ireland's place from within the United Kingdom, but to break up the entire United Kingdom. And I want you to listen. I want you to focus. I want you to focus very, very carefully on the words of Jeffrey Donaldson as he was explaining the benefits of working within this constitutional changing EU protocol. So let's listen to Jeffrey, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more.
Well, in the end, customs checks doesn't mean that you change the constitutional status of a part of the United Kingdom. That's not going to happen. Already we're seeing the political parties and business leaders coming together to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation, not only to ensure we have full access to the UK market, but we've also got access to the EU market.
So there we had Jeffrey Donaldson in the early part of 2020, actually talking to Spotlight and saying that we need to exploit the opportunities from within the protocol. And right now, that this is me paraphrasing, but businesses are working to be able to exploit these opportunities. Now, just remember who that it is in charge, who that it is the main leader within British Unionism right now. I'm going to ask a question before that we move on. But didn't Jeffrey understand the implications of the constitutional changing EU protocol? Didn't he understand that in order for this protocol to work, that there were a plethora of regulations voted in through the Northern Ireland Assembly, which would have provided the mechanisms by which this protocol would have life breathed into it? Didn't he understand the constitutional implications of these things? Well, he said because you have a border, because that you have customs checks, you do not have constitutional change. Then we had a court case. Then the court case focused on the Act of the Union, specifically Article 6 from within that Act of the Union, which provided for unfettered access for goods for right around this United Kingdom, in where that Northern Ireland was unfettered. Northern Ireland was a full member of the UK internal market, the UK single market, and here comes this protocol. And then all of a sudden, that we can't get certain goods from England, Scotland, or Wales, and vice versa, back the other way. Here we had the EU come in and drive a wedge between our brothers and sisters in England, Scotland, and Wales, creating the circumstances in where effectively, the United Kingdom was broken up. The United Kingdom, in Northern Ireland right now, we are not part in the same way of the UK internal market as England, Scotland, and Wales. That is constitutional change. The Act of the Union was made up. That specific Article 6, was to do with trade. And, whenever a leg, as Jim Allister would have says, of a leg of the union is taken away, well, what it is doing, what it has done, is that it absolutely weakens the United Kingdom. It weakens the union. And there we had Jeffrey Donaldson promoting the benefits of the constitutional changing EU protocol. So remember what Jeffrey Donaldson had just said. Now, what we're going to do is that we're going to continue to move on. We're going to continue to move on in a way that what we want to do is that we want to now try to explain that whenever that we would have heard just a few weeks ago with reference that Jeffrey had thought that the powers that be in Westminster, well, they were going to manipulate the system in order for Jeffrey Donaldson to come and to double job, as people were saying, as the media were saying. Now, we don't take our reading from the mainstream media, but certainly they were talking about double jobbing, in where that Jeffrey Donaldson, he wanted to be an MLA, in where that he could possibly become First Minister in Stormont. Now, no one knows his exact intentions there, but he certainly wanted to go forward and to stand and seek that he could get elected to an MLA's position. And then what he also wanted to do is he wanted to retain his MP's position in Westminster. Now, we're here this evening to tell you that when the media were talking about double jobbing, well, how wrong were they? How wrong did they actually get it? Whenever what we can see from the man, the leader of British unionism, well, whenever that we look, whenever that we dig, whenever that we understand what it is that Jeffrey Donaldson is involved in, one wonders where he ever finds time to stand up for British unionism. And maybe this explains why that Jeffrey wasn't over his brief in terms of the constitutional changing protocol. Maybe this explains why he wanted to exploit the opportunities from within the constitutional changing protocol. Now, these are his words. These are not my words. And I'm going to ask another question. Is Jeffrey Donaldson the type of leader that you, as a British unionist here in Northern Ireland, when I say British unionist, I am aiming at people who would call themselves Protestants, people that would call themselves unionists, people that would call themselves loyalists. I don't like the divisional titles that were made up by others in order to keep divisions in place. So I'm just going to use the single term, British unionists here in Northern Ireland, or if you prefer unionists, well, okay, that's what you are. But whenever I say British unionist, I am aiming at a title which encapsulates the entire diverse and broad width of the unionist family right across the length and breadth of Northern Ireland. So did Jeffrey Donaldson understand what he was talking about whenever that he was promoting the benefits of this constitutional changing protocol. Well, now what we want to do is that we want to now go back for a bit, and we want to try to understand something. We want to try to understand what has been happening over the years, not just here in Northern Ireland, but across the Western world. What has been happening to undermine democracies? What has been happening by people, what they've been pushing into place by people whose aim is to perhaps control the world? What has been happening over the years, and how that it is that these people, with their minds and their thought processes set in domination? Well, let's just show you some clips to understand what it is that these people have been doing from a way back, even before that I was born. So what we're wanting to do, people, is that we're going to play a short clip. Now, I'm going to provide a warning before that you see this clip, because this is a clip of John F. Kennedy. This is a clip of John F. Kennedy when he lost his life as American president. Now, we're not going to get into the whys as to why that he would have lost his life. But what we are going to do is that we're going to play this clip, this video clip, and we want to let you hear a speech that John F. Kennedy would have given slightly before his untimely death. Now, I want you to listen to these words very, very, very carefully, because these words have huge significance to what it is that's happening here in Northern Ireland today in 2022. And not just happening here in Northern Ireland, but if you'd have watched our first screen, of which this is part 2, well, what you would have understood is that CIA influences are manipulating into place Irish American foreign policy and American foreign policy into the body politic, into the social aspects of, and into our education system here in Northern Ireland. So we're going to go with this video, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more. So watch this video, listen to the words, and I'll be back very soon.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
I want to focus on just a few words, and I hope that you listen very, very carefully to the words of John F. Kennedy slightly before his untimely death. But, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here when I say no expense is spared. You know, the budget is unexhaustible, let's just say. The budget, the purchasing of people, well, it's an expensive business. And seemingly there is no limits to the amount of purchasing power that has been used, that continues to be used here in Northern Ireland. Now, what we're now going to do is that we want to let people understand is that, we want to let people understand something. Before that we move on to, again, looking at Jeffrey Donaldson, and for a specific reason. Now, we want to let people understand that every single time there is a problem here in Northern Ireland, politically, every time throughout the entire Brexit process, in where that Irish American influences, and where the Irish and where American foreign policy understood that the people of the United Kingdom have had enough, that the people of the United Kingdom, they want to hold on to their sovereignty, that the people of the United Kingdom were given the finger up to globalization, where the people of the United Kingdom, they wanted to be rule makers, not rule takers, where the people of the United Kingdom, well, they wanted to be masters of their own destination. And whenever this foreign policy understood that, well, we could see the sniping and the underhand tactics that was being used time and time and time again, in where that it was designed to ensure that people from within the British establishment, well, they became, let's just say, jittery. They became nervous as to the implications of delivering a full Brexit to the people who voted for to leave the EU dictatorial Ponzi scheme. So what we want to do before that we move on and we focus on some of the words from Jeffrey Donaldson, what we want to do is that we want to just listen to this clip from an Irish American with reference Brexit. Listen very carefully.
A member of the Obama administration has warned that if the government pushes ahead with its legacy proposals, it will unwisely strain every aspect of relationships between the US and UK.
I'm just going to stop that just for my own, so I can rewind back. You got to excuse me. I'm looking at a lot of information, and I didn't know which clip this was. This one was about the legacy proposals, in where that the British government suggests that they're going to move to protect the people who served here, in where that if the IRA, if the terrorists, if they have immunity from prosecution, well, isn't it time that everyone had immunity from prosecution? And yet these people, they do not miss an opportunity in order to stand on the side of those people in where with who that they have a huge allegiance to, let's just say. So this is about the legacy proposals, and just listen to this Irish American voice whenever he is threatening that Washington would not see this favorably, that Washington would do this, that, and the other if the British government do not move to appease the Republican terrorists. And we're just trying to show a picture of how did these things happen. So this is a very short clip, and we'll be back in a second.
The Obama administration has warned that if the government pushes ahead with its legacy proposals, it will unwisely strain every aspect of relationships between the US and UK.
Your piece, which people can read on Forbes.com, it focuses very much on state forces. You mentioned paramilitaries only very briefly in this piece. They were responsible for 90% of the killings in Northern Ireland. Do you think the other organisations have done enough to bring that kind of truth?
No, I don't think anybody's done enough, but the government is a teacher. Government is the primary respecter of rights within any society.
It must be pointed out, though, that also Sinn Féin, the party that is linked to the IRA, is sitting in government in Stormont.
Yeah, and they bear responsibility as well. I'm not dismissing that. The actions of the IRA and other violent extremist groups were deplorable and need to be acknowledged as well. But the government bears a special responsibility, and I would not say, as an outsider, there's been anything approaching a serious accountability for past action.
The problem is, if you look at the past, and people have very different views of it. And sometimes that is what stirs up the anger and the pain. So, for example, at the weekend, we had Sinn Féin commemorating the death of a hunger striker 40 years ago. And then others pointing out that there was no mention from the party of the woman in her 20s who he killed in a firebomb attack on a clothes shop. And the reality is sometimes when you talk about these issues, it only pushes them further apart.
Yeah, I guess I disagree. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's absolutely true that these things linger and they divide people, bring them apart. But the idea that somehow if you take the issue of the past off the table, or you sugarcoat it, or you find some way to kind of avoid any kind of legal government obligation to allow both criminal but also civil actions, at the end of the day, those fears, those anxieties, that burning sense of injustice doesn't go away. Again, South Africa is a good example. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they took it on head on. The government really acknowledged a long record of injustice and violations of human rights and the rule of law. If you take a 30,000-foot look, the British government has yet to do that in Northern Ireland, and they need to do that, and what they put forward doesn't accomplish that.
In your article, you make a plea to the Biden administration to oppose this. And Joe Biden is somebody who sees himself as Irish, yet the reality is there still has not been any special envoy appointed to Northern Ireland, as has been the case with past administrations. Do you think Joe Biden is showing an interest in these issues, or does he need to show more of an interest?
Well, I think he has a deep interest, as you say, both because of his own heritage, but more broadly, he has staked out a position in favor of human rights and democracy, and is very committed, as he has been for the last 20 years, to maintaining what's important about the Good Friday Agreement. And I do think I can expect, and I think everybody should expect, that if this bill goes forward, there will be a reaction from the U.S. government in saying, as I'm saying, that this is not consistent with the principles of human rights, rule of law, that were at the absolute center of the Good Friday Agreement, and that are now a bit frayed because of Brexit. And so I can imagine this will affect every aspect of U.S.-UK relations.
So what that man's saying is that if the legacy proposals go through, which are aimed at protecting the British soldiers from prosecution, we just noticed in Northern Ireland just yesterday that there is another ream of so-called, what is it they call it, collusion, collusive behavior is the terminology that is actually being used. And you would think that the terrorists were the good guys. You'd think that they were the people that were aggressed against. And it is these terrorists, and you believe me, and I make no apologies for saying that, it is these terrorists who are working in the background, and they're working in the background in order to ramp up the cases that are coming against, whether it be RUC men, ex-RUC men, people that are retired, British soldiers, anyone, loyalists, anyone that stood between IRA terrorism and a sense of normality here in Northern Ireland. It is the terrorists that are ramping these things up. It is the terrorists that are working in the background, and they're working in the background to destabilize Northern Ireland. And here you heard this Irish-American voice saying that this will have huge implications, and this is me paraphrasing, but this will have huge implications for the relationship between America and the British government. And I wanted to show you that, because what it does, it sets in context as to why that it is that our politicians, why that it is that the British government, why that it is that those that are meant to be serving and protecting us, those that are meant to be serving and protecting and standing by and standing side by side with veterans, those that would have given themselves, put their lives in danger to serve and protect the people of the United Kingdom. Our British government, well, they're not standing by the veterans in their old age, as we have all seen. And this explains why that this Irish-American interest, and I'm going to use another term, this American foreign policy, would be to appease the terrorists, to give the terrorists exactly what they want, in order that they can keep the terrorists on side, in order that they can have their globalization pushed into place. Now, the real question is, and this is before that we move on with more stuff, but the real question is here is, have your political leaders, have my political leaders, have our political leaders, have the leaders of British unionism here in Northern Ireland, have they thought to themselves, well, if you can't beat this bandwagon, let's just join it. If we can't beat them, join them. If this means that we will be ostracized for standing up against this, well, isn't it better that we facilitate ourselves? Isn't it better that we get our feet under this Irish-American policy, this American foreign policy? Isn't it better that we get our feet under the table of globalization and we are treated nicely, thank you, whilst everyone else, well, the people that elect British Unionists into place, well, as in the words of Carson, they were only puppets, you were only puppets, I was only puppet. Whilst we help those people climb into power, whilst we help them climb the ladder into power, only for them to kick away the ladder with no concern for you or I or anyone else. And I believe the more that I look into this, I've always believed this, that the American influence here in Northern Ireland is such that well, our politicians are certainly the leaderships of the UUP, certainly the leaderships of the DUP right now, well, they're only too happy to swindle us in order that they can stay with and hitch themselves to this bandwagon, which is taking us towards detriment the Western world wide, I may add. So we're going to remove this for a second, and then what we want to do is that we want to, we're going to play a short video here. We're going to play a short song, and I'm going to ask people, I'm doing this for a reason, is because there are some videos that didn't download to us, and hello that I have a full video here. What I want to do is that I want to go back and look and see how these videos actually came through. So just to take a short break, don't go away, tag people into the live chat. Let us know what you think on the live chat. Again, share this if you haven't already shared it. Don't forget to give us a like, a love, and a share. You know, do what you can to propagate this here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to pop this into the onto the screen. And I'm going to ask people that if you would like to help our work, if you would like to help the work that we do here at Restore, well, you can do so in the live chat right now. There's a PayPal link, and you can click on that PayPal link. And what you can do is you can help fund the work that we do here at Restore in order to, well, to make our life, to make your life, to make the people of Northern Ireland's life, to make the extended United Kingdom's life better. And how do we do that? Well, I believe, people, that we do that by exposing the charlatans that we have as, well, so-called political leaders who are working for themselves and are prepared to get behind almost anything if it means that they keep their feet under this globalist table, which, when examined, well, they're seeking to remove your democracy. They're seeking to remove your nationality. They're seeking to remove you from your attachment to the United Kingdom. They are seeking to incorporate you within this so-called New Ireland, a place where we don't want to go, and a place where our own politicians are seemingly hell-bent in taking us. So if you can help our work, put a few pounds into that PayPal link, and believe me, it's needed. It's needed because there's a lot of time and effort which goes into doing things like this. And don't go anywhere, because at the end of this stream, we're going to stop what we're talking about. We're going to stop for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a development which we had to visit today at very, very short notice. And, you know, this again is something that every British Unionist has to learn. And we made a short video whilst we were there. We attended somewhere this morning to do something in order that our enemies, well, they couldn't get one over on us, and we were there ahead of them because that it was that some people from within our community actually blew the whistle and told us what exactly was going to happen. So that coming shortly after we expose what it is that we're here to expose this evening. So what I want to do again is I want to play a song that I put up last week, and we're just going to play from this just to have a short break whilst I go back and see is there any way in which that we can get the videos that we tried to have here this evening. And if not, we'll be moving on and we'll do things slightly in a different way, but we'll not be beaten. We'll definitely not be beaten. We'll be back after this song.
Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows that the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows that the captain lied. Everybody got that broken feeling, like their father or their dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody want a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows that you love me, baby. Everybody knows that you really do. Everybody knows that you've been faithful, give or take a night or two. Everybody knows you've been discreet, but there were so many people you just had to meet without your clothes. Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Yeah, everybody knows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. And everybody knows that it's now or never. Everybody knows that it's me or you. Everybody knows you live forever when you've gone and done a line or two. Everybody knows the deal is rotten. Old Black Joe still picking cotton for your ribbons and bows. Yeah, everybody knows. And everybody knows that the plague is coming. Everybody knows that it's moving fast. Everybody knows that the naked man and woman are just a shining artifact of the past. Everybody knows the scene is dead, but there's gonna be a meter on your bed that will disclose what everybody knows. Everybody knows that you're in trouble. Everybody knows what you've been through. From the bloody cross on top of Calvary to the beach of Malibu. Everybody knows it's coming apart. Take one last look at this sacred heart before it blows. Yeah, everybody knows.
Yes, so here we're back. Everybody knows. Everybody knows the dice is loaded. Everybody knows that the good guys are losing. Everybody knows, well, they know now that the Irish-American influences, we coaxed them in with a piece of bread, and then we squashed the poor birds' heads. And this is the problem with what is happening right now, is that a lot of our politicians don't actually realize that Irish America has no truck with them, that they're here to facilitate the Irish here in Northern Ireland. That a lot of these people, they're after this romantic dream of this so-called United Ireland. They're not here to serve British Unionist interests. And yet Doug Beattie in and around the 30th of November last year, Doug Beattie was out talking to an Irish American fund. And he says that he was talking to them about bringing money here back into the disadvantaged communities. So watch for a man with a bag of money, one Mug Beattie, in the very near future, arriving up into the disadvantaged communities. I have to say, we've seen it before. And let's see one Mug Beattie arriving up with bags of money, promising the earth, the moon, and the stars, and this Irish American fund actually funding him. But what it does is that it puts Mug Beattie in favour, and this is what Mug Beattie's after. So is Irish American influences actually purchasing into place Mug Beattie? And why? Because he fits with this socialist foreign policy in where that we all know. We all can see that what they're doing is that they're destroying the fabric of society using bread to coax people in. So let's move on with what it is that we're here to do. So just a small insight into what it is that I've actually believed. Now, I'm going to divulge something here, and I am quite within my rights to say something. I am quite within my rights to say this. This may actually shock people, but here I'm going to make a claim. Here I'm going to make a claim that in my thought processes, because of a certain thing that happened, I found myself actually questioning and asking a question in October of 2018. And the question that I asked whilst I was sitting face to face, sitting in front of Jeffrey Donaldson, having a good conversation with him. And the question that I asked was, and this was after something that he said to me, I asked, is Jeffrey Donaldson working for the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace? Now, I'm going to clarify why that it is that firstly, that I'm entitled to say that, and why that it is that brought me to that very thought process of who is Jeffrey Donaldson working for. You see, I had a lot of knowledge on what was happening in Cameroon, and there was a bloody civil war which had developed in October of 2017 in Cameroon, and it was to do with the Francophones in Cameroon wanting to consume the English Anglophone side of Cameroon. And what they did was that they put language into the English, the French language, and French language speaking teachers into the English language speaking schools. And they tried to change the law from common law, English common law, to the civil law that would be used in France. And the people, the Anglophones from within Cameroon, what they said was, we're having none of it. We're happy that our kids, that our culture, that our way of life was based upon largely Judeo-Christian values, free will, your right to free will, your right to criticize things, your right to freedom of expression, free speech, your right to point out corruption where that it is you see it. But what was happening was there was an aggression against these people, and there was a bloody civil war as from October of 2017. Now, here's your thing. I begin to have a conversation with Jeffrey Donaldson, and this is probably the first time that this has been said publicly. that I begin to have a conversation with Jeffrey Donaldson. And I'm saying to Jeffrey Donaldson that you have to stand against this Irish language aggression here in Northern Ireland. And I'm saying to Jeffrey Donaldson that do you not understand that this is a Republican nation building strategy in where that they want to use the Irish language. They want to use that to destabilise Northern Ireland. Similarly, as to which they done in Cameroon, similarly to which they had, the Republicans had learned. And this is their exact words within their strategy, their current strategy, which was written by Shana Walsh. Well, he said, using our experiences from within the Basque country, we want to retake, and this is me paraphrasing because I can't exactly remember the word, but we want to repossess was the word, the Irish language. And we want to use that to, and this is me paraphrasing, to build a nation. Then I heard other words from Shana Walsh, which went something like this, that they want to green Northern Ireland using the Irish language. So every time that you see a sign going up in Irish, you see, as per that famous quote from Republicans, every word spoken in Irish will be like another bullet fired in the Republican struggle. So I was having this heartfelt conversation with Jeffrey Donaldson to tell him that this has been happening worldwide, and here is a precedent in where that this language could be used to destabilise Northern Ireland beyond anyone's comprehension. And, you know, because of my knowledge in Cameroon, and I'm telling you something that happened, Jeffrey Donaldson, I think that he was amazed at the knowledge that I had with reference Cameroon. And Jeffrey Donaldson said something to me, and I listened very carefully, people. He said to me, how do you know so much about Cameroon? I says, well, look, I have people, I've lots of, I'm going to say, extended family members who come from Cameroon. And I had been following what has been happening in Cameroon. And Jeffrey Donaldson told me something. And, you know, he might as well have been telling me something beyond what he told me. He said that I've been there. I've been given those people my experiences in the Northern Ireland and on the Northern Ireland peace process. And, you know, Jeffrey Donaldson may as well have told me something when he told me that. And this started me looking into other areas of Jeffrey Donaldson's life. Now, I'm going to say, this is something that isn't hid. You know, Jeffrey, if you just do this research on the internet, and you know, you just do the research by looking into companies' houses, the records of which companies that he would be involved in, which companies that he would have started and stopped, which groups, which peace and reconciliation groups that he's involved in. You know, you just have to look at Jeffrey, and he doesn't hide it, with all due respect. But he has been running around this Western world. I'm saying the Western world, beyond the Western world. And he has been giving his experiences in the Northern Ireland peace process and telling these people how to create peace with your enemies. Now, he would say also that he is learning from them into how, in some occasions, not to make peace with your enemies. But here is what I have concluded whenever I seen what I seen. And this is what I concluded in 2018, in October of 2018, while sitting at a meeting in Jeffrey Donaldson's office. I concluded that Jeffrey Donaldson, and this is my absolute right to say this, has something to do or is working for and on behalf of the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace, which is based at Queen's University in Belfast. Now, I'd say that again. This was what I determined. I determined as a person that because of what it was that Jeffrey Donaldson was involved in, you see, this is what the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace does. And, you know, they go around the world. They use the template of the Northern Ireland peace process in order to try to encourage others to go down this same line. And whenever that we dig into the minutiae of what it is that these people are promoting, well, people, what they are promoting are the circumstances in where that you get the illusion of democracy. This is my claim, and I am quite entitled to say this. They are promoting the circumstances in where that people end up with devolved assemblies. They are promoting the circumstances in where that people end up in devolved assemblies, which are directed, which are run, which are taught, and which are manipulated by so-called experts in given fields. And we're going to show you this as we go on. So I concluded in October of 2018 that Jeffrey Donaldson had to be something to do with the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace. Now, let me just tell you something that I know. I got an admission from a professor of the George Mitchell Institute back in February of 2020, just before the virus hit, let's just say. And I got an admission from a man, one John Brewer. And in this admission, a written admission to me, John Brewer had told me that religion is the cause of so many problems around the world, that nationality isn't good, that Britain for the British, I listen very carefully, that Ireland for the Irish, that America for the Americans was unchristian, pernicious, and politically dangerous. And I thought when John Brewer had written those words to me, politically dangerous to who? Now, I followed up at a meeting with John Brewer in the Wellington Park Hotel to talk about things. And in the meeting, whenever that we were talking, John Brewer was basically telling me that my nationality was dangerous, that us wanting to be part of the United Kingdom, that us wanting to be British, this was unchristian, pernicious, and politically dangerous. And this is what these people are driving. And then I asked myself the question, is this who Jeffrey Donaldson is actually working for? And I am entitled, I will emphasize this again, I am entitled under what I have seen, under what Jeffrey Donaldson has told me, I am entitled to suspect that he has some connection with the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace. Now he will say, and this would be expected, but he will say that what he is doing is that he is sharing his experiences around the world and showing people how to make peace with their enemies. But I'm going to say something right here, and we're going to focus right now on the Northern Ireland peace process. And these are Jeffrey Donaldson's very words, that he wants to make peace with his enemies. And this is me paraphrasing, that he said, whenever you're trying to make peace with your enemies, well, what you've got to do is that you've got to take the little people. Now, this is me paraphrasing. You've got to take the plebs, and this is me putting in my own words. You've got to take those people who do not know what to think themselves. They do not know what's best for them. This is me putting my own words in. But Jeffrey Donaldson was saying that when you're making peace with your enemies, you've got to move at a pace in where that you bring people, I'm going to put in incrementally, with you. And I'm going to let you hear this for yourself. But you bring people incrementally with you. But the reality is, people, is that what point is there making peace with enemies that do not want to make peace with you? What point is there continuing to capitulate, continuing to roll over, continuing to compromise with people who want to destroy you? What was the words of Winston Churchill, I think, and people can say on this live chat if Winston Churchill actually said this, but you can't negotiate with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. And whenever you're going to hear Jeffrey Donaldson here very, very shortly, and we're going to play these words, and I wish that I had the copy of this condensed video, But I think that the powers that be didn't want me to have this video on this screen this evening, but we'll go through the longer version of the video. We'll stay for a bit longer so that you can hear your leader, the man that you voted to put in power in December of 2019, the man that was part of a leadership that promised you the earth, the moon, and the stars before an election, and shortly after the election. Well, what did he do? What did that party do? What did that leadership do of that DUP? Well, we were just like puppets. And once in power, once we helped them climb up that ladder, they kicked away that ladder and they went off and they done their own thing. Now, remember why that it was that I was in his office in the first place was to plead with them not to do a deal on the Irish language, because this very thing has the ability to act like a nation-building tool for Republicans, and it's going to be a tool which they are using, which they will use, which they will continue to use, and to use Shana Walsh's words, in order to green Northern Ireland street by street. And can we trust Jeffrey Donaldson and the DUP hierarchy? Can we trust Mug Beatty and the hierarchy of the UUP to put a stop on this? No, we can't. We actually can't trust these people, and you will see why in the coming weeks as to why that we cannot trust these people ever again. So what am I saying again to recap? I'm saying that I believed in October of 2018 that Jeffrey Donaldson was working with, was working in, perhaps was working for and on behalf of. Now, there's a few options. Any of those three was working for and on behalf of the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace. Now, let's remind ourselves of who they are. Tony Blair's in that club. You as a British unionist, you as a Protestant, a unionist or a loyalist, and I don't like using these labels, do you think that Tony Blair has your best interest at heart? Who else is in that club? Jonathan Powell, Tony Blair's chief aide. This was a man that said that the Belfast Agreement would never have been in place if the Belfast Agreement hadn't been written in words which were, well, they were suggested by Jonathan Powell, which was constructive ambiguity. In other words, people, Jonathan Powell admitted live on national TV at the 20th anniversary of the Belfast Agreement that the Belfast Good Friday Agreement wasn't worth the paper that it was written on. The Belfast Agreement, it was a disguise, in Jonathan Powell's own words. It was built for appeasement, swindle and lies. The peace is a farce. The IRA guns are still there. They were out in the streets in 2019. They were out on the streets again in 2020. The Belfast Agreement, that was a disguise. It was built for appeasement, swindle and lies. The peace is a farce. The IRA guns are still there. And London is afraid of another bomb scare. And you know, who else is in that club? Tony Blair, Jonathan Powell, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, John Brewer. I mentioned him a minute ago. That's the man that said in a written admission to me that Britain for the British, that Ireland for the Irish, that America for the Americans is unchristian, pernicious, and politically dangerous. Your nationality, according to these vile excuses for human beings, your nationality is politically dangerous. So who are you politically dangerous to? Well, you, my friends, are politically dangerous to them and the ideology to which they promote. That's who it is politically dangerous to. And the real question is does your political leader, the political leader of unionism, does he work for them? Does he work with them? Does he work for and on behalf of them? Or does he work alone, promoting exactly the same mantra, exactly the same things as they promote across the world? That's the real question, and that is my claim, and that is a claim that I'm entitled to make in a democracy. It is my right to say what I see, to point out corruption where that I see that it exists, to point out things in where that we've done research and that we've seen how that it is that these people are moving. I mean, look at Jeffrey Donaldson. Let's remind ourselves yet again. He said that the constitutional changing protocol, he says that let's exploit the benefits. Let's keep that constitutional changing protocol in place. Now, you tell me when you hear this, does that man have the constitutional position of Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom? You tell me, does he have your constitutional position? Does he have your best interest as part of the United Kingdom? Does he have that as paramount? Well, let's just listen to him yet again before that we move on.
Well, in the end, customs checks doesn't mean that you change the constitutional status of a part of the United Kingdom. That's not going to happen. Already we're seeing the political parties and business leaders coming together to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation, not only to ensure we have full access to the UK market, but we've also got access to the EU market.
So last week, people, and over the course of the last few weeks, we weren't talking about Jeffrey specifically last week, and we hope that he's got over his recent bereavement, and we mean that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But something, what's really important to me, what's really important to you, is your place within the United Kingdom. And something, too many people across this land has given their lives, has stood up in pursuit of the protection of Northern Ireland from within the United Kingdom, or within the United Kingdom. Too many people have stood up against the terrorists and who has lost their lives and spilt their blood for capos, for people that aren't on our side, which are pretending to be our leaders. Too many people have stood up in pursuit of the United Kingdom staying strong. Together we are stronger, said the DUP. Too many people has stood up against the terrorists to ensure that they wouldn't have their way, for to let people like Jeffrey Donaldson, for to let people like Doug Beattie pull that rug out from under us. And when we see things happening, we have every entitlement in a democracy to question things, to say what it is that we see, to expose things, to question things. And there's a lot of questions in there, to question things. And that's exactly what I'm doing today. It is my absolute right to do that. Now, I was saying and suggesting to people that we needed to focus on something, one area. And I'm going to pop up a picture here. Okay, what you're going to see in front of you here, remember the double jobbing? Well, if it was double jobbing, why wasn't it triple jobbing? Because here's another job. The Right Honourable Sir Jeffrey Donaldson is a director for the Centre for Democracy and Peacebuilding. Now, what is the Centre for Democracy and Peacebuilding, and what type of people are involved in that Centre for Democracy and Peacebuilding? I'm going to take you to another picture here. And we've done this before in a previous stream, but it's important that we paint the picture here and we show the type of people that Jeffrey is trying to make peace with. You can't make peace with people. You can't negotiate with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. So here we have Liam Maskey, who's a senior advisor at the Centre for Democracy and Peacebuilding. And then that when we look at the people that are involved in the Centre for Democracy and Peacebuilding, and you've got to excuse me because what I'm doing is I'm going to put it up on Google here. And we're going to go over a few people that is involved in this, I'm going to say this operation. Quote unquote, this operation. Now, the Centre for Democracy and Peacebuilding, from what we can see, has its roots back pre 1998 and the signing of the Belfast Agreement, the signing of the Good Friday Agreement. And if you'd have watched part one of this, what we were doing, is that you will have seen that a guy called Liam Maskey, this man here, the family member of the infamous Alex Maskey. Now, what we can read about Liam, now, this isn't us saying that Liam is anything other than we are reading from public records that Liam was interned. Back in the day, he was interned, and he was arrested many times for what can only be viewed as, things that were associated with what it was that was happening here in Northern Ireland. So Liam Maskey had said that he was a community worker. Now, I've no reason to doubt that Liam Maskey isn't and wasn't a community worker from within the nationalist and Republican community. But Liam Maskey made the initial contact with a man called Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell was a community worker from within the Loyalist community based in North Belfast. Liam Maskey actually, he proposed that Billy Mitchell and this man would create, and in Liam's own words, he said, the first inter-community baby. Now, what we then learn from looking at Liam Maskey is that Liam Maskey, he obtained the President's Prize, the President's Award, the American President's Award for quote-unquote peace building. That's what he won. And I don't know of anybody else that got that. We can see similar awards that was being made to people like, say, Eva Grossman. And that is another person which is involved in the Centre for Democracy and Peace Building based in North Belfast, in which that Jeffrey Donaldson is actually a director. And when we look and we go through Companies House, for example, we can look at the ins and outs of that company, and we can see who over the years has been involved in this company. And whenever that we look at these type of people and we see what it was that they were involved in, we can find people, for example, that would be involved with the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace. These are the type of people, they do not want British unionism to survive. They do not want you to hold on to your nationality. They do not want the continuation of the United Kingdom. And quoting Jeffrey Donaldson's words, that when you're making peace with your enemies, you've got to bring your community incrementally. This is me paraphrasing. And sometimes you can't move at a pace in where that you're moving maybe too slow, but you also can't move at a pace in where that you don't bring your community with you. But what if, this is the real question, your enemies don't want to make peace with you? It is clear your enemies do not want to make peace with you. Your enemies only want to make peace on their terms. Your enemies do not want the shared space. We have seen this time and time and time again. We've seen it today. And when we finish this stream tonight, we will be coming back and showing you where we were today. I'm trying to get there ahead of a Republican-driven agenda to try to take something away that belongs to the people from within British unionism here in Northern Ireland. And it was as well that we got the wind that these people were about to do that, and we went and we took it away for ourselves, and we chose how to do it, when to do it, and, well, we will also choose how to proceed thereafter. And you'll be hearing that after this stream, so don't go anywhere, people. But these people do not want to make peace with you. These people are insisting, from the Americans, the Irish American influence, from the people like John Brewer from within the George Mitchell Institute. Let me just read something here from a screen. And this has to be done, people. This has to be done so that people from within our community can understand who that it is that this man is involved with, who that it is that this man's trying to make peace with, who that it is that this man is trying to move you in an incremental way, in where that you can be brought along incrementally to what? To exploit the benefits of the constitutional changing protocol? Is that what he's trying to incrementally move you towards? His own words with reference to protocol. tomorrow evening, people, in Dromore, this same man, well, he will be there standing up against the protocol. Is this electioneering? Is this an electioneering stunt? Let me just read you something just here in front of me, and bear with me as I read, because what we want you to do is that we want to understand the type of people who are controlling what is happening, the type of people who are driving what it is that I believe that this man's doing right now, the type of people that he's becoming involved in, and the type of people that he wants to make peace with. Remember these words, that Britain for the British, that Ireland for the Irish, that America for the America for Americans is unchristian, pernicious, and politically dangerous. And yet this is what our political leaders that we elect, this is what these people don't seem to be able to get into their thick skulls. You can't make peace with people that don't want to make peace with you. Are we anti-peace? Well, no, we're not. We are peace-loving people. But all that I want, all that any British Unionist wants, is for to live in peace and in harmony with nationalists, with Catholic people. I'm not going to say Republicans, but because I would absolutely have no truck with those people for what it is that those people have been responsible for over the years here in Northern Ireland. Let me get back to reading. Wednesday, the 6th of February 2019 will go down in European political history as one of the most insightful days that we have ever had. The reason we can make this claim, well, today, Donald Tusk of the European Union fame made an unbelievable claim. Now listen very carefully. He said there is a special place in hell for those who promoted Brexit. This is true. This is not made up. This is not fiction. And yet this is who Doug Beattie has aligned himself with, the EU Union, not the Union of the United Kingdom. Now, this is the tie between the George Mitchell Institute and Donald Tusk. This is the tie. This is the very tie that I'm going to read. I'm going to show you. This is something that I had wrote for publication back when this happened. Almost immediately, like a three-man Mexican wave, Professor John Brewer of the globalist-driven George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace, Security and Justice, and Guy Verhofstadt of the European Union, they kept the ball rolling by adding Tusk's insult with Brewer tweeting, "Special place in hell for no-deal Brexiteers. Hell is too good for them." So you people, me, anyone else who voted for Brexit, who won that in a fairly and squarely democratic way, who won that referendum, John Brewer, one of the top professors in this George Mitchell Institute, he said that hell is too good for you if you voted for Brexit, that hell is too good for me. And what did his friend Donald Tusk say? He said that hell holds a special place for you. And this is who Mug Beattie's aligned with. And this is the driving force behind a lot of things that is happening here in Northern Ireland. Remember the title, the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace, named after the man George Mitchell, who was the so-called honest broker which formulated the Belfast Appeasement, the Belfast Agreement, the so-called Good Friday Agreement, which doesn't work for British Unionists, which has never worked for British Unionists. And when it is needed to work for British Unionists, well, what about the principle of consent right now when you have a border in the North Channel against your will? You didn't consent to this. I didn't consent to this. Nobody from within the British Unionist side of the equation consented to this. And Jeffrey Donaldson said, well, we might as well exploit the benefits of it. Is exactly what he said. What did Edwin Poots say? He says, well, this brings opportunities to export to the Great Britain market. You couldn't make this up, people. You couldn't make this up. The DUP were actually moving into place to support the constitutional changing protocol, which will destroy you, which will destroy your place in the United Kingdom, which will ultimately destroy the United Kingdom if it's left in place. So let's go on. So Verhofstadt of the European Union kept the ball rolling by adding Tusk's insult with Brewer tweeting, "Special place in hell for no deal Brexiteers. Hell is too good for them." Followed by Verhofstadt, "Well, I doubt Lucifer would welcome them, as after what they did to Britain, they would even manage to divide hell." Now listen very carefully. We all know who Tusk and Verhofstadt is, but who is Professor John Brewer? Let's look at who Professor John Brewer is. John Brewer, the School of Social Sciences, Education and Social Work professor, the senator. So he's a professor in the Senator George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace, Security and Justice at Queen's University in Belfast. Now, I can tell you that if he's still in place to the exact same standards as he was then, he is one of the top 4 professors from within that institute, to which I can calculate and look at, well, according to a letter where 40 professors actually wrote when Peter Robinson was given an honorary doctorate in Queen's, whenever they said, no, Peter Robinson shouldn't get it. Well, there was 40 professors that actually signed that at that time. But anyway, that's neither here nor there how many professors is involved in that. But Professor John Brewer is also a member, are you ready for it, of the United Nations roster of global experts. Last year on BBC Radio Talkback, Professor John Brewer, now listen very carefully. If you're a British Unionist, you need to listen to this very, very, very carefully to understand who that it is that this man is consorting with, who that it is that this man is on this Centre for Democracy and Peace with. So last year on BBC Radio Talkback, Professor John Brewer shocked listeners when he suggested that listeners should not look upon convicted IRA member Jerry Kelly using his convictions as a bomber. Brewer went on to say, "We have got to see past the convictions for bombing and recognize him, Jerry Kelly, as a human being." As John proceeded as the persuader for an unrepentant terrorist, attempting to permit and paint Jerry Kelly as the saint, many people were left thinking, who is this fella Brewer? Has he been sleeping for the last 45 years? Does he not know that Jerry Kelly's history as an unrepentant terrorist? Does he not know that Jerry Kelly would have been touring this land, promoting the fact that they shot an innocent prison guard in the head? Now, I have to actually protect myself, and they shot is what I said. I'm not specifically saying that Jerry Kelly had said that he'd done that, although that he, when questioned by Stephen Nolan, he didn't say that he did or that he didn't say that he didn't, which leaves in the thought processes of many people that he perhaps did, that he perhaps didn't. So he didn't deny it, is what we're saying. So I have to protect myself in the liable courts by saying that does John Brewer not know that about this man's unrepentant terrorist past? Yes, indeed. A person who has a past should not be disqualified from having a present or a future. But in the case of Jerry Kelly, Jerry went on to have a lengthy career as an IRA terrorist, responsible for murder and responsible for mayhem beyond what many people could comprehend. The question on many people's lips, who is this persuader? Who is this fella, John Brewer? Why is he going out of his way to attempt to sanitize Jerry Kelly? Does Brewer have no respect for Jerry Kelly's victims? Does Brewer have no respect for, and I don't know whether I'm freezing people or whether my screen is freezing. I hope that you can still hear me. But does Brewer have no respect for the victims' families, for Jerry Kelly's victims' families? A close look at John Brewer and his associations with the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace reveals individuals like Jonathan Powell, who served as Downing Street Chief of Staff under Tony Blair, the man who in 2004 swindled the United Kingdom into an illegal war in Iraq, using false information as his reasons for committing British forces to that war. Tony Blair is also a friend at the George Mitchell Institute, as is Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, We all remember Blair's under the table on ethical deals with IRA-linked Sinn Féin, providing IRA members comfort letters and Queen's pardons, placing advantages, commitments to the Republican movement and agreements without the knowledge of the British Unionist negotiators. Today, in 2019, as a result of Tony Blair's dodgy dealings with Republicans, we see many of our law enforcers subjected to witch hunts in their old age. Now, I'm just trying to tell you who that it is that this man has some associations with. Should we trust this man whenever he is happy to make peace with the type of enemies who does not want to make peace with you, who wants to remove your democracy, who is happy to remove your democracy? And I can say that because they've already done that. A close look at Brewer's associations within the Mitchell Institute provides a clear understanding why the professor acted as a persuader, seeking to sanitize unrepentant terrorists like Jerry Kelly. The model for creating the illusion of stability within conflict zones. Now listen very carefully, people, because this is what the George Mitchell Institute, in my estimation, does. The model for creating the illusion of stability within conflict zones is to appease, to facilitate the aggressors in a given conflict by bringing them in from the cold, offering them what amounts to be an amnesty and lucrative positions of power within their contested respective lands. This model was pioneered in Northern Ireland and is now used as a template for global peace, delivered by persuaders like Brewer and Powell on behalf of the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace, Security and Justice, and facilitated by the United Nations. The George Mitchell Institute is a conglomerate of globalists working in conjunction with globalist organizations to bring about the conditions to implement a United Nations-driven one world government by 2030. Now, I wrote that back in 2019. I done that because of watching these people with a hawk-like eye, understanding fully who these people are, who these people were. Now, we have a good team here in the background in Restore. We do the research, and we can make these claims because that we see unhealthy, unholy alliances developing. You know, we don't even have to look for these things now. We see who that these people are involved with, who that these people are involved with, and then we can say, well, who are these people working for? Are they working for British Unionism? Or are they working for themselves? Are they working? I'm going to quote something from a film, from Braveheart. And this is something that is used worldwide. This is something that is in the film Braveheart. Whenever the English generals wanted to persuade the Scottish nobles to persuade the people that were wanting to go to war at the time with the English, well, lead this army off the field and we'll increase your land, we'll increase your wealth, and we'll give you titles. Who remembers the Belfast appeasement? Who remembers the David Trimble's of this world, the Reg Empties of this world, the Ken McGuinness's of this world, the Lord Kilclooney's of this world? And while some of these people, you know, we'll focus on Ken McGuinness, we'll focus on Lord Kilclooney, you know, John Taylor, which is Lord Kilclooney, you know, he was shot and nearly killed by the IRA. Ken McGuinness was a UDR captain from my recollection, or was it a sergeant? But these people did serve and protect their community, but these people were rewarded handsomely for taking us down the line of an appeasement process which had only one end game. The end game is a border poll, after which that border poll has to happen every 7 years, in where that they ultimately people, you, I, and everyone else will be delivered towards this so-called New Ireland. Now, we're going to be talking about some other things. We're not going to be labouring on other things that we've got to talk about here. But I feel that you need to know who the George Mitchell Institute are, who that it is that is in charge of the George Mitchell Institute, who that it is that works with, who that it is that propagates their message, who that it is that works their strategy. Let's have a look at a short video clip from Jeffrey Donaldson. We're not staying here much longer, but whilst that we've got numbers this high, I'm going to ask you to give this channel a love, a like. We may not be here for very much longer. And why? Because some people don't like the truth. I mean, we're waiting on videos that was meant to have delivered to us, which actually hasn't arrived, which suggests to me that some people are working in the social media land. You've got to excuse me, and I hope that my voice is still here. But we're not even getting what's being sent to us. But we decided to go on and speak from the heart, speak from the knowledge that we have about these things, in order that you and other people can understand who that it is that your leaders are trying to actually facilitate, who that it is that your leaders are happy to work with, who that it is that your leaders are placating. Well, let's look at this short video by Jeffrey Donaldson. And I am just hoping right now that our stream is not interrupted in the way that it has been at several locations right throughout this feed. But don't go anywhere, because once we go off, we're coming back with reference what that it was that we were doing this morning. So I'm going to add to the stream just a hint of what that it is that Jeffrey Donaldson is talking about on your behalf, on my behalf. Well, I know that he's not speaking for me when he's talking about making peace with people who want to destroy me. And he's not talking for me when he's wanting to make peace with people who have no interest in making peace with him. He's not talking for me whenever he is trying to move my community incrementally into the position of compromise, into the position of compromise, and compromise again. We've all seen it over the years. He is definitely not talking for me. I do not have to give him my authority to take me somewhere where I do not want to go. I do not give him authority to take us, the British Unionist community, to a place in where that our forefathers would be turning in their graves if they for 1 minute understood that what was their efforts for. Their efforts were all in vain for people like Jeffrey Donaldson to get his feet under this globalist table, and for him to be, the director of the Peace and Democracy Project in North Belfast, which was formed by the CIA. Maybe I didn't say that, which had its embryonic stages with Chuck Feeney, when Billy Mitchell, and when Liam Maskey was summoned to an office in Belfast City, in the Belfast City Centre, and where the money was given over to create Intercom, which developed into the Centre for Peace and Democracy, of which Jeffrey Donaldson right now is a director of. So it was purchased into place by the Barbies. This was purchased into place by Irish American influences. Let's play Jeffrey Donaldson, and let's hope that our stream isn't interrupted anymore.
This morning I want to talk about, as William has said, something that is for me a passion, and that is peace building. And when you look around at the world today, the need for peace builders is just huge. We live in a frightening world, and social media and 24-hour satellite television brings into our homes the reality of the terror that is associated with conflict. Nelson Mandela once said, you do not make peace with your friends, you make peace with your enemies. And in essence, that is true. But this morning I want to suggest to you that the art of peace building also requires that you make peace with your friends as well as with your enemies. And I say that from experience in Northern Ireland, but also having observed conflicts around the world and met many people, especially political leaders who are involved in peacemaking. And as you sit down and in those quiet moments with those political leaders, time and time again, they have said to me, you know, the greatest challenge that we face is bringing our own people with us, making peace with your friends. And I can think of a few examples. The Middle East has been in the headlines in recent weeks. Will the Middle East finally be solved? Will that conflict be brought to an end when the Palestinians reach an agreement with the Israelis? Yes, that may be the case, but actually, before we get to that point, the Israelis need to make peace with themselves, and the Palestinians need to make peace with themselves. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, needs to make peace with the Israeli right wing, and Fatah need to make peace with Hamas on the Palestinian side. And actually, if you study the Middle East peace process, one of the major impediments to a peaceful outcome has been the divisions within the two camps. So making peace is not just about making peace with your enemies. Last weekend, I had the privilege of being in Poland, in the city of Gdansk, with my good friend Eva Grossman, who is very much involved with TEDx. And we attended the opening of a new centre, the European Solidarity Centre, which...
Just let me, for the record, tell you that Eva Grossman is involved in the Centre for Democracy and Peace. Eva Grossman also got an award similar to Mr. Maskey. It's not exactly the same award, but certainly it's an award in where that, let's just say that, and this is a question, was Eva being rewarded by the American foreign policy for services rendered? That's a question. That is a serious question. You know, because we look at what these people are promoting. We look at how the Chuck Feeney's money was put into the Stormont to train MLAs and their associates to be better politicians. We then understand that it is Eva Grossman who is doing the training. And then we wonder why that she got this praise from the Irish American administration. Now, whenever we look at the type of people that are behind us, well, we look into America today. We look into America and we see what it is that's happening. We see that these people have their sights set on, look at Biden right now, where borders are completely down, where they want anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place to be able to have any country of their choice, not worrying about the people within those countries, in where that the services become overburdened, in where that the hospitals, the schools, in other words, we have societal breakdown where the stability aspect from within society, it disappears. You know, all because that these airy, furry type globalists are teaching people that diversity is good. Well, yeah, some diversity is good, but too much of it. It was said to me once that a small fire will keep you warm, but a big fire will absolutely roast you. And these people are going down the line of creating a huge inferno. So let's listen more to Jeffrey, because we had to explain who his friend Eva Grossman is and what she was awarded for, and how that it is that Eva, we can see, has been hopping from one company and now forms another company, which is now Politics Plus, which is actually teaching your MLAs who you elect on how to deal with you in a diverse society. I elect a politician because I like a politician, because I subscribe to a politician, because I subscribe to his thought processes. What happens if they're then consumed within a system which turns them around and turns them against the very things that you've believed all of your lives? Now, remember the George Mitchell Institute, that Britain for the British is unchristian, pernicious, and politically dangerous. So let's listen on to Jeffrey in his need to create peace, in his need to move the British Unionist community with him, and his need to move at a pace in where that as many people as possible are not left behind. And then we try to understand who that it is that he wants to make peace. He wants to make peace with people that don't want to make peace with him. Has this man lost the run of himself? Has this man, well, is he fit to be a British Unionist leader? Only you can answer that.
Is on the site of the shipyard in Gdansk. And if you cast your mind back to the days of Lech Walesa, the Solidarity Trade Union, the move against communism, and the creation of a democratic state in Poland. And Lech Walesa was there for the opening of this Solidarity Centre. And he stood on the trailer on this little truck at the gates of the shipyard, just as he had done all those years ago when he led the strike against the communist rulers in Poland. And he spoke passionately about the journey that he had been on. The following day, there was a little ceremony inside the grounds of the shipyard where Lech Walesa and the president of Poland planted a tree, and they called it the Tree of Freedom. And as Lech Walesa was putting his mound of soil onto the base of that tree, there were some protesters there. They were shipyard workers, or rather redundant shipyard workers, because of course the shipyard in Gdansk no longer builds the ships that it used to build. And as Lech Walesa was planting the tree, they were shouting, "What kind of freedom is this?" And by that they meant, we haven't got a shipyard anymore. So for them, the journey had been a negative experience. And yet these were people who belonged to the Solidarity Trade Union, who stood shoulder to shoulder with Lech Walesa during that strike. And there we were all those years later, and they were denouncing him. But I put it to you that Poland would not be where it is today if it had not been for the leadership and the courage and the risks taken by Lech Walesa.
I remember those words. Poland wouldn't be where it is today if it hadn't been for the leadership and the things that he'd done in order to bring his community forward. They wouldn't be where they are today if this leader hadn't have done what they did for and on behalf of Poland. But these are completely different circumstances. You see, in order to work with Republicans won't work with you unless that they're being appeased, unless we've seen it. We have seen it since 1998, 22 years or 20, well, I don't know how many years it is now, 1998, 22 years later, and these people are still insisting on raping and robbing and pillaging this system for everything that they can get out of it. They are using and abusing the fact that they have to be part of this process, and they have created a huge appeasement process in where that it has got to the point that British Unionists are now separated from the United Kingdom. And this man still wants to make peace with these people. You know, there's other ways. This man is no strategist. This man is no leader. This man is no man that is going to take us down a road that is going to ultimately end up in everybody being happy. This man his strategy will end up in tears. His strategy will end up in the destruction of Northern Ireland's place from within the United Kingdom. His strategy will end up destroying the United Kingdom. Let's listen to this man. Let's listen to him.
It would not be the burgeoning democracy that it is. It would not be one of the most successful economies in the European Union today had it not been for the risks taken by Lech Walesa. And yet, in the taking of those risks, he lost friends, people who were part of his movement.
So he's talking about losing friends. And look at how many friends that this man has lost. He and him and Arlene Foster and the DUP hierarchy, they have disengaged with. the bulk of the unionist electorate. They think that they're going to swindle the unionist electorate. Well, look, this is why we're here this evening, people. We're here this evening to show you what is in this man's head, what is in his thought processes, that he may lose friends, and then he's going to add insult to injury by saying that those that are shouting, that John Yates, that the people at Restore, that the people on our live chat, that the people that would be criticising where that they're taking us, that would be criticising that they won't get up off their knees, that would be criticising that they won't stand up for British unionism, that would be criticising that they wouldn't actually walk away from the appeasement process, that would be criticising the fact that they have done nothing in over a year, 12 months, 14 months, against the constitutional changing Northern Ireland Protocol. If you criticise that, this man has the gall to say that you are the opposition. Just listen to him. Listen to him.
And so, right at the heart of our very being, and John Alderdice spoke about this earlier, at the heart of our genetic makeup is a sense of belonging, a need to belong. Our identity is critical. Look at the number of conflicts across the world today that have at their heart the issue of identity. And here in Northern Ireland, identity was at the heart of our conflict. The sense of belonging, the question, to which nation do you belong? And so we have a great want within us to have this sense of identity. And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries that create difficulties, personal difficulties.
Does this man think that he's involved in a project of peace building? Does he really think that he's involved in a project of peace building? Does he think that he's building peace with Republicans? Does he think that these people are going to compromise? Does he think that he can make an acceptable outcome to those that have fought and died and lost their lives and who are still being aggressed against by these vile excuses for human beings that are in the Republican movement? Does he really think, does he believe the words that he's saying? Just listen to him. But you see, listen to Jeffrey Donaldson and question, does this man have a brain cell?
For them, in terms of their identity, their sense of belonging to their tribe, their clan, their political party, their community, their family. I remember during the negotiations that led to the what we call the Good Friday Agreement, and then subsequently to the St Andrews Agreement, many conversations that I had within my family circle about the peace process. Like many families in Northern Ireland, mine is a family that has been touched by the Troubles. And so the peace process was important in some senses, in different ways, to different members of my family circle. But I would be bound to say that as a politician, I was greatly influenced by those discussions that took place within my family, because that was my sense of belonging. I'd come through the Troubles as part of that family circle. I'd seen the hurt and the pain that had been inflicted upon that family circle. I'd seen it in my community. I'd seen it amongst the people that I had the privilege to represent. And in 1997, I was elected to Parliament and straight into the negotiations. One of the first decisions I had to take as a member of Parliament was whether to stay in the talks when Sinn Féin entered the negotiations in the summer of 1997. And I remember having a conversation with my father about this. And this was a man who'd served for 25 years in the Ulster Defence Regiment and latterly the Royal Irish Regiment. He'd seen a number of his comrades killed. And he said to me, you know, we have to move on. There has to be something better than this. And I would say that that was a significant influence for me in the decision to support my party staying in the talks and having Sinn Féin at the negotiating table. And I remember in advance of St Andrews, attending a meeting in Londonderry. Stephen spoke passionately about his time in that city and explaining what we were trying to achieve through the negotiations at St Andrews. And there were lots of difficult questions. There were a lot of people in that room who really struggled with the idea of my party going into government with Sinn Féin. And at the end of the meeting, there was an elderly lady came up to me. This elderly lady...
People, I've stopped it. We're going to spare you this because, you know, we're not really wanting to listen to this piffle. You know, we're going to move on a bit and we're going to try to pick it up here and where that we cut to the chase, because people are getting annoyed listening to this here, and his estimation that he's making peace and building peace with his enemies, and he's bringing British unionism along with him. What if British unionism do not want to go where you want to go to, Jeffrey Donaldson? Timmy Johnston, what about you? You know, anyway, we are peace-loving people. All we wanted was to be left alone. All we wanted to do was to be part of the United Kingdom. And these people are Jeffrey Donaldson. He's facilitating this. This very event is funded by a conglomerate of companies, was originally put in place by Chuck's money. This is what these events are doing. Now, TEDx, Eva Grossman runs TEDx here in Stormont. But you know, it is run through a thing called Politics Plus, which is the extension of where Chuck's money actually came from. So let's just understand who that it is that Jeffrey is talking to. What about John Alderdice? What about Margaret Ritchie? What about all of these people that are involved in this peace and democracy outfit in Northern Ireland? You know, these people are doing the bidding of the American foreign policy here in so-called, well, it's in Northern Ireland, but when they say that it's on the island of Ireland, let's just play on.
His ability to bring his own people with him. And that's important. I need to know, as a negotiator, that the people sitting opposite me have the capacity to bring their people with them.
So Jeffrey needs to know that the people that sitting opposite him, do they have the capacity to bring their people with them to make a deal? How has that worked out? How long has he been in politics? He's been in politics since what he talked about on the run up to, was it 1997? Did he say that he became an MP? And has he not learned that he cannot have he doesn't know, he can never know. In fact, if he doesn't know now, he's going to never know that these people have no interest in bringing anybody anywhere towards a compromise, unless that compromise involves us being in so-called New Ireland, in where that, well, do I believe that Jeffrey Donaldson wants to take us? Let me tell everybody of another claim from Jeffrey Donaldson in October of 2018. Whenever I looked him in the eye and I asked him, how long do we have, Jeffrey? We don't want no messing about. How long do we have in Northern Ireland? 15 years was the quote from this man. Now, he might deny it, but I've no reason to say that. He said 15 years. And I thought to myself, how defeatist is that? Imagine having a leader who is willing to accept the demise of the people, of the state, of the entity that he claims to be leader of. Let's play on. Let's just listen to the rest of this for you to get a glimpse of who Jeffrey Donaldson is.
Because the compromises that are at the heart of peace building and the risks that are required to be taken mean that I need to have some understanding that on the other side there will be reciprocity and that there will be deliverability.
So he's just talking about compromises. He's just talking about, the risks that he has to take. There has to be, the Republican movement have to reciprocate, and they have to give something to get something. When have you ever seen that happening here in Northern Ireland, people? Ask yourself the question. And this man is continuing, still insisting that we go down the same line as before. He can't get enough of what he doesn't really need as a British Unionist leader.
And so I think that, and I am not in any sense criticizing what Nelson Mandela said. He said, and he was right. You know, it's not just about making peace with your friends, it is about making peace with your enemies. But in Northern Ireland, on this island and within these islands, crucially, it is also about the two communities, the two traditions on this island, making peace with themselves and then making peace with each other. I've often described peace building as a bit like bridge building. You can have a great process just like you can have a bridge, and it looks really good. But unless you have the strong supports on either side of that bridge, the bridge will not stand. And I think, if I may say so, one of the deficits in our peace process today in Northern Ireland is that the strong supports on either side are not as strong as they should and could be. And where we need to invest is in building those supports in that community. And I know that there is Together Building a United Community strategy, and that is important because the peace walls will not come down and the barriers will not be removed to a shared society unless we strengthen the very core of our society, our communities on both sides. And that's why I think at the moment the bridge needs strengthening. And the issues that need to be resolved have got to be addressed. And so I return to the theme. Someone once said, it's an old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Actually, I think when it comes to peace building, it's the other way around. It is about keeping your friends close. And we see it in many parts of the world. The ability of a leader to deliver peace is inextricably linked with his or her ability to bring their people with them, to communicate, to provide leadership.
He doesn't sound like a communicator to me. He doesn't sound like a leader to me. He doesn't sound as if he'd be the type of man that would bring me with him on a journey. Making peace, building peace is about, let me say it this way. Your belief, your culture, your way of life, your lifestyle choices, they should be between you and your fellow enthusiasts. They should never be permitted to interfere in anyone else's way of life. They should never be permitted to aggress against, for example, those that would have served and protected this community, those that would have gave their lives, those that would have put themselves in the firing line to serve and protect the people. Well, we should not be finding ourselves in the position in 2022 in where that there is an avalanche of cases by these unrepented terrorists which are driving this type of thing. They are fighting war by a different means, and Jeffrey wants to reach out and build peace with these people. You can't make peace with people that don't want to make peace with you. And the sooner this man realizes that, the better. The sooner that this is nipped in the bud, the better. The sooner that we have a strong British Unionist leadership, the better. And right now, what I'm looking at is, is it really Daniel O'Donnell here pretending to be a British Unionist leader? Who knows? Let's just play on as we're nearly over at this. And then we'll be going off. We'll be going off for 5 minutes. We'll be coming back just to explain what it is that we had to go and do this morning to ensure that these people that do not want a British Unionist about the place, well, we're going to explain it in depth as to what we had to do to avert what they were doing on our community from within one of our own communities, not just from within one of our own communities, but certainly in the heart of one of our communities. Republicans did not want British Unionist culture, and we'll show you that when we come back. But let's just listen to Daniel O'Donnell here as he wants to sing a little love song to those that don't love him.
And I think that's what we need. That's what we need in Northern Ireland. That's what we need in the Middle East. That's what we need in Eastern Europe and in other places where there's conflict today. But the final thing I would want to say is this. Politicians very often are criticised. Leaders are often attacked because they're not moving at the pace that some people would want them to move. And certainly you can't build peace on the basis that you move at the pace of the slowest person in your group. That is what leadership is about. But you cannot get too far ahead of your own people. And therefore, making peace with your enemies is important, but it can only be successful if you make peace with your friends.
To that I say, well, he's failing to make peace with this friend. He's failing to make peace with, as a British Unionist, we got behind the DUP. As a British Unionist, we rallied this country. Some people, myself, my friends, we put our hands in our own pockets to pay for insurances in places like the Ulster Hall and other things to get the DUP elected. But once in power, once we helped them climb that ladder, what they did was that they kicked away the ladder with no concern for us, after which that we helped him, we helped his party. And what did they do? Well, they shafted us. They completely and utterly shafted us. And now they're back with their tail between their legs, and they're asking for your vote. They're asking for my vote. They're asking for us to trust them. Well, we're going to play two things in the way out here, people. What we're going to do is that we're not going to hang around. We're going to yet again pop up a little PayPal link there. And if anyone can help our work, well, you see that we do the work in the way that needs to be done. If you would like to make a small donation towards our channel, if you can do that, please do. But listen, there's huge numbers here today. Whether that's people looking to see what the DUP are at, or whether that's people that are here who are generally amused or whatever, who knows? If you like what we do, if you want to help us, you can do that through that PayPal link. If you don't like what we do, well, keep coming back to watch for some more, because the reality, the truth, has a habit, has a way of infiltrating, not infiltrating, but certainly getting by the brainwashing of some people. Sometimes the truth hurts the people, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to give us a like. I want you to give us a love. I want you to make it known on the live chat that you're here, in order that we can get to bring you back to your channel every single time that we go live. So 2 things on the way out, people. We have a lot more. We didn't go as far as what we could have done. We believe that we were being curtailed by social media giants because of stuff that we couldn't get across. We went the long route to let you hear what Jeffrey Donaldson was talking about when he's saying that he wants to make peace in a way that he has to bring his community with him. Well, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, I just so can't believe he just said that, in the words of Vicky Pollard from Little Britain. I really just can't just believe he just said that he has to bring us in the road and down the road that he wants to travel. Well, we've news for him. Not under our watch, not in our name. And the DUP won't be getting my vote. And in fact, in the run-up to this election, we're going to have to be confronting Jeffrey. We're going to have to be confronting the leadership of the DUP, and we're going to have to be giving these people a piece of our mind. We need to ensure that these people that have made a living off the blood and off the backs of the people who have spilt their blood over the years, the people that has been killed, the people who continues to have insult added to their injury. Again, I say, if you're a nationalist, if you're a Catholic, you've got to excuse me, excuse us for exposing this and for insisting that these charlatans shouldn't be moving further and further and further with the charlatans on your side. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if we had politicians that wanted to do the right thing by people, that wanted to cater for everybody, that wanted to ensure that everyone was catered for? We need to live in a society in where that once the needs of people are met, then the wants of extremists, well, perhaps, possibly, we'll look at them. And if we don't like what they're saying, well, we simply should not be looking at them. So listen, thanks very much for coming along. I really, really appreciate the fact that the numbers have stayed really, really high across the platforms. And I would just ask that you give us your support. And what we're going to be doing is that we're going to plan you out with two things. And I'm asking you to watch this, and don't go anywhere. I'll be back in 5 minutes. We have something huge to expose here on Restore. We've taken a video today. We had to go at short notice to actually do something for and on behalf of everyone that comes to watch Restore. And hang around, stay on Restore, watch for this, come back up again in 5 minutes time once that we finish. But playing is out with two things. One thing being that Jeffrey Donaldson, we want you to let you hear what he wants to do with reference to the constitutional changing protocol. Well, he wants to exploit it. He wants to work within it. He wants to let it remain in place. And all of a sudden, when the British Unionist electorate have turned against them, and when they see the writing on the wall, when they see the rise of a People's Party from within British Unionism, well, they change their words. They alter their words. They prepare to spin, swindle, and fudge our people yet again. The Belfast Agreement, it was a disguise. It was built for appeasement, swindle, and lies. The peace is a farce. The IRA guns are still there. London's afraid of another bomb scare. How many people had to die for being British in our own land? How many people had to die for Jeffrey to want to make peace with people that don't want to make peace with him? Short video from Jeffrey Donaldson. We're playing us out with one song, and we'll be back in 5 minutes to expose something that we had to expose today. People, leave us your thoughts on the live chat as we play out. If you can help us, put some money into your PayPal. Restore UK, it's your platform. It's our platform. It's a platform for the people, of the people, who will stand up relentlessly for and on behalf of British unionism here. And to further what Jeffrey Donaldson had said, I've often said that you can't make peace with someone until you make peace with yourselves. You can't reconcile with someone or a group of people until you reconcile with yourselves. And you're not going to reconcile whilst that we have so much corruption, swindle, and lies from these mainstream political parties, namely the DUP, namely the UUP. Isn't it time that we give this new party of the people a chance? And we got behind this attempt by ordinary people from within British unionism to take back control, to ensure that they wouldn't be treated as second-class citizens at the hands of people like, well, Jeffrey Donaldson. So let's just hear what he said, and we're playing us out with the song, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Well, in the end, customs checks doesn't mean that you change the constitutional status of a part of the United Kingdom. That's not going to happen. Already we're seeing the political parties and business leaders coming together to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation, not only to ensure we have full access to the UK market, but we've also got access to the EU market.
I looked outside.
I looked outside.
What did I see?
What did I see?
A little bird.
A little bird.
He looked at me.
He looked at me.
I lured him close.
I lured him close.
With a piece of bread.
With a piece of bread.
And then I smashed.
And then I smashed
his little head.
his little head.
The moral of
The
story is.
the story is.
You want some head.
You want some head.
You need some bread.
You need some bread.
Right turn. Huh.
Look outside.
What did I see?
What did I see?
A little bird.
A little bird.
He looked at me.
He looked at me.
I lured him close.
I lured him close.
With a piece of bread.
With a piece of bread.
And then I smashed.
And then I smashed
his little head.
his little